we're going to be learning about how do we manage grades in color. By now, I'm sure you realize that it's a pretty involved program, and it might be very easy to get lost in what you're doing. And it's important to stay organized. And the program gives you a set of really good managing tools of how to keep track of what you're doing in each shot and being able to copy this from one shot to the next in an entire sequence. So let's just look at how we might use this as a production tool in terms of how we'd want to manage this process a little bit better. So I've opened up lesson number 5, and this is the project I'll be working with this week. It's basically just a sequence, and there's already a lot of stuff done to each of these shots, and I kind of want you to just, I want you to mess around with playing with the different, creating different grades, copying and pasting grades, and moving grades between shots so that, once I create a grade for, let's say, this shot, you'll notice that at the end of the sequence, if I, jump to the end of the sequence, well, here's another shot from that same clip. I want to be able to copy and paste that grade there and that grade there. That one might need a little bit different grading to it, but then there's also one at the end of the shot. There's another one. So I want to be able to move my grades in between these things. So first, let's look at the primary in-room. And let's take a closer look at this sort of what we'll call the grading timeline here. Here's the clip timeline that shows us the thumbnails of the clips, and below it we have a timeline that shows us the grades. And we have a blue tab here that shows us the entire grade. That means every adjustment we make in any room, and all the different rooms are recorded in a grade. And you'll notice below this at the bottom here we have a P1, which is the primary, and we have S2, S8. That means that we have a secondary correction in the number 2 tab, and we also have a secondary correction in the number 8 tab. Now, why would I put one in 8? Well, let's say that I'm making a correction and I don't want it to, I want whatever I do in this number 8 to affect everything in the secondary. Like, let's say I'm going to do a vignette. You've seen me do a vignette in a shot before where I make the corners a little bit darker. Well, no matter what I do the image, I want that vignette to affect everything underneath it. So I'd probably always put a vignette like that in number 8. There's probably lots of other reasons why that it's probably not wise to go into at the moment, but let's just, this shows you where the corrections are. There's a primary and 2 secondary corrections in grade number 1. If I click grade number 2, you'll notice that it has a grade in the primary grade, and then there's a grade in a secondary a secondary number 1, a secondary number 2, and a secondary number 8. And then if I click grade number 3, I have a primary and then just a secondary number 2. So I can create, here there are 3 grades, but actually it allows me to create 4 different grades. So slide this over here. I've got grade 1, 2, 3, and 4, and those are the number of grades that I can have stored for any particular shot. So how do I create a grade? Well, I'll just go, and here I've already got 3 created for this first shot here, medium close-up doorway. Let's say I want to create another grade. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to click grade number 4. And right there, I've got grade number 4 selected. You'll notice there's nothing underneath it. So now I can go in, and the shot this is the original shot. It's backed out of every primary and secondary that has been in the previous grades, and now I can kind of start over. I can go to my primary in and make an adjustment. And, let's just, I'll drop this down a little bit and lighten it up a little bit. And maybe I'll do a green. I'll bump up the green. And I'll desaturate the red, and maybe I'll, bump up blue a little bit, or take it down a little bit. So, okay, so, there I've done another primary grade. You'll notice that it recorded it down here. Let's say I didn't like that. I want to reset this. Well, I can go down here to my grade timeline, right click on that grade number 4 and say remove grade number 4. Boom, it's gone. I didn't like it. Let's say I want to copy and paste. I want to start with a grade that I already did, and I want to sort of try something new from there. Here's how I do that. Let's say I like grade number 3. I like what I did in grade number 3, and I want to try a couple of I want to try pushing things a little bit in a new way. So here's what I'll do. I'll go up to grade and I'll say copy grade, and it gives me 5 different memory banks, so that I can save different grades in several different memory banks without even having to paste it anywhere. I can just, but I have to remember what I copied into a memory bank. If you had, let's say, a sequence with 100 shots in it, it might be quite complicated to copy and paste things to and from other grades. Management is going to be a very high priority. But this is very simple. I'm just going to copy it into bank number 1. So it's copied everything. It copied the entire grade into bank number 1. Now I can go to and create a new grade. There's my grade number 4. And now I want to paste what I had in bank number 1 from grade 3 into grade number 4. So I'll go here and paste bank number 1, because that's what I copied it to. And now I've got grade number 4, and it's the exact copy of grade number 3. But now I can go in and make some adjustments to it. So I'm in the primary room, so maybe I want to tweak things a little bit. Maybe I want to increase the highlight saturation. Let's see. That's not doing a whole lot, but let's see. I just want to create something different here. And let's take the midtone saturation down a little bit, and let's take the shadow saturation down a little bit, and let's, okay, so let's say I like that. Now grade number 4 is a totally unique thing. So that's how I sort of manage grades. I can create any number of grades that I want, up to 4. If I don't like one, I can delete it and start over. Let's say I don't like, let's say here's grade number 2. Let's say I want to get rid of grade number 2. I can reset grade number 2, and that just erases everything that was there. Or I can remove number 2. And what it does is resorts things. Now my grade number 2 used to be grade number 3, and my grade number 3 isn't what used to be grade number 4. That can get kind of confusing. The last thing I want to do to sort of show you guys how to manage things is, well, which one of these grades is my favorite? Let's say grade number 3 is now my favorite. So I want to label that my beauty grade. So I'll just say set beauty grade, and the only thing it really does is adds an orange marker here. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't affect the software in any way. If, let's say, I want to delete grade number 2, let's remove grade number 2. You'll notice that my beauty grade it changes to grade number 2. It changed the name, but it still has that marker in it. So I don't lose track of what my favorite grade was. So that's the first step in managing grades. I can create several different grades for a particular shot as I'm working it. It's very important to do things this way so I can start to compare what shots look like and tweak things. And sometimes the subtlest changes are hard to see. Sometimes I kind of lose objective point of view and I really just don't know what looks good anymore. In some cases you need to move on to another shot and then come back to it and review what you've done so far. So it's important to save different grades and as you're deciding what look you like and what in fact does look best. So try doing more than a few different grades for a particular shot until you decide which one you like. Next, let's go ahead and just talk about saving individual portions of a grade. Let's just say I like this particular primary that I did on this shot. Well, let me just isolate this. I'm going to go to my secondaries for this shot, and I'm going to disable the various secondaries. So I've turned that secondary off. That's number 8. And I'm going to go to number 2. I'm going to turn this one off. You don't need to, just sort of follow along. So the only thing I have here is, well, that was kind of dumb. Let me leave those on. And what I'll do is I'll just go and create a new grade. So I'll go grade number 3. I got a new grade here, and I'll do a primary adjustment here. I'll raise my highlights a little bit, and I will desaturate my shadows a little bit. Let me move my shadows into the bluer areas, and I'll desaturate them. And maybe I'll do a correction here and bump that up, and then maybe I'll drag this down, bring this back up. I'm just messing with this until I get something that we can clearly see is not what we had before. Okay, so that's my new primary. Now what I want to do is, I really like this. I want to save just this primary correction. Over here in this sort of panel here is where I can save my primaries. And I can create a list of these. And so I've got, this is a medium close-up doorway. And what I'll do is I'll just double-click, or triple-click in this little file name area, triple-click so it selects everything. And then I'll just call this medium close-up doorway, doorway correction. And I'll call this 01, and I'll click save, and it creates a little thumbnail. And all it did is it saved just this primary correction. So I could go over here and let's say I just adjust things. I'm just going and messing with this, so you can see I got something really different here. And I was like, you know what, that was a bad move. I want to go back to where I was before. Double click, and I've got that primary correction back. All right. Same goes for secondary corrections. Now, the only difference between a primary and secondary, the primary is only one room. It's one correction that affects the whole image, if you recall. In the secondary, I've got several different tabs. I got 1 through 8, and I can make corrections in each one of these tabs and create multiple secondary corrections. When I save a secondary, I save all of these tabs. Everything that happens in a secondary gets saved as a correction. So let's go to my my grade number 2. It's got 1 secondary, and let's go ahead and I will add another secondary here. Just real quick, I'll add a vignette. So I'll turn that on. I'll scale this out. I'll bring it over here, and I will soften it quite a bit. And then I will go to my shadow saturation, or shadow, make sure it says outside. Outside. Let me reset this secondary. What happened was I made an adjustment on the inside. And I can make an adjustment to both the inside and the outside of this same vignette. And I didn't feel like resetting it, so I'll just, So I've got my vignette here. I'm going to soften it. And I've got outside selected this time. I'll drag down my saturation, and scale it down a little bit. Okay, now we're starting to see that vignette. There it is. All right, so now I've got 2 secondaries here. Let's say I want to save this. And I could save this as medium close-up and doorway. Dang. Doorway, secondaries, secondary, and I'll call this a 1. You need to come up with your own way of labeling things. I'm using the clip name because obviously any primary and secondary grade is going to be specific to a shot. That's the way we're going to work. Save that. There's that secondary. I can create any number of secondaries, and let's say I'm going to go to grade number 3 here. I've got no secondaries here. Well, let's say I want to add these secondaries to this grade. Double click it. Now I've got those secondaries plopped into my grade number 3. Just the secondaries. It didn't change the primary because I'm not, you know, I didn't affect the primary at all. So that's basically how we manage those secondaries. We save them right here. Another thing I can do is maybe I want to save the entire grade. Okay, I can go to my setup, and you'll notice I have a grades tab here. There's shots. Here's grades. I can save the entire grade. So if I want to save, let's say, medium close-up, doorway, grade, and I'll call this 0, 0, 1. However, whatever naming convention I want to create. Click Save. Now the entire grade is saved. So I could, now in this case, I could go to grade number 1, and I could double click this, and it's going to load this grade into grade number 1, and it's going to change all of my primaries. My primary, my 2 secondaries are now reflecting that particular grade. What's important is now I can go to another shot. Let's say, let's slide down here. Let's go to this shot, and let's say I want to try this grade out on this particular shot. Probably what I want to do is go ahead and add another grade. So here's grade number 2. Well, I thought I was doing that. Okay, here's grade number 2. So I've added another grade, and I want to double click this, and it's going to create that grade in this shot. And I can go down, and every time this shot appears, I could do that. Or another thing I could do is I could actually do this by dragging this grade. So let's just say I take this grade, I can click that grade tab, and I drag this. Now you see this got this little crazy amphibian hand here, and I want to drag it on top of this shot. Boom. I just added that to the grade. Oops. I've added that to this particular grade here. I could also drag it and add it. You know, it added to that grade. If I wanted to create a new grade, I need to highlight this shot, make sure I've got that shot selected, add grade number 2, and I could select this and drag it to one of these 2 grades here. There I'm going to add it to grade number 1, there I'm going to add it to grade number 2. Or I can drag it over the actual clip, and it's going to add it to whatever the current grade is selected. So in this case, I've got grade 2, which has nothing in it, and I drag it. Now it's added it to grade number 2. Or let's say I just want to move a portion of that grade. I can do that by just dragging the individual primary or the individual secondaries that I want to move from one shot to the next. I can grab this primary, and now I can move this primary anywhere I want. Okay, or secondary. Of course, I want to highlight this thing, and wherever I'm going to drag it to, I need to kind of plan ahead. So let's say I want to move this vignette secondary from grade number 2 to, let's say, this shot here. Well, let's say to this shot here that has 2 different grades. Well, I want to make sure I've got the grade selected I want to move it to. or I want to add a grade that I want to move this to. So now I can grab this secondary number 8 and drag it over here, and drag it over the image will move it to the current grade, and now I've added just that secondary number 8 to this grade. So I mean, this is how I can move things around. I don't have to be expected to redo everything from one shot to the next. But you do kind of have to plan ahead and understand what you're doing in each of these grades, so that you can remember, this particular secondary number 8. Well, what is that? I don't remember. Let's go to it. There's I've got that grade selected. Secondary number 8. I go to my 8 tab here, and it is a vignette. Right? That's what I'm moving around. So if I go over here and look at this particular secondary, and I go to tab number 8, it's that vignette. It's the same vignette. It's the exact same secondary applied to a totally different shot. Doesn't look particularly good, but that's all right. Obviously here I've got a weird color curve in there, but okay, that's the nuts and bolts of how I basically manage these different grades. I can create several grades in the particular shot, 1 through 4. I can copy and paste them to and from. Not just, I could copy this grade, for instance. I could copy this grade. I can go grade, copy, memory bank number 2, let's just say. And I can go to a totally different shot. Let me move down to here. Let's go to here. All right. And I'm going to say grade number 3. I'm going to create a grade, and then I'm going to paste from bank number 2 into grade number 3. And look, I've added that grade to this shot by pasting it here. All right, it gives you lots of different ways to sort of move grades around. You just sort of pick your favorite way of doing it in the way that you can sort of keep track of it. So here's what I want you to do for your assignment. Here you've got a primary grade. I want you to make some adjustments to the grade for close-up midge. All right. So all of Midge's close-ups, you're going to have a close-up of Henry and a close-up of Midge. I want you to go ahead and do a primary and secondary correction. I want at least a primary correction and at least 2 secondaries. I don't care what they are, but make it look good. So you're going to do a primary and 2 secondaries for close-up of Henry, a primary and secondary of close-up of Midge. I want you to save them as, I want you to save your primary. I want you to save your secondaries of each of those. So when I go to when I look at your project file in the primary, I should say close-up Henry correction 01, and I'll see in the secondary you've got a couple of close-up Henry secondaries, a secondary here, and you'll have the same thing for Midge, so I know you saved them here and you understand how that works. And then I want you to propagate those corrections throughout the rest of the sequence by either dragging the grade, by double-clicking the primary and secondary, or I also want you to save each of the grades here, close-up Henry and close-up Midge, so that you'll basically propagate your primary and secondary corrections for these 2 close-ups throughout the rest of the sequence. All right, sounds good. Shouldn't take you too long. Have a go at it. Have fun. That is all for now.